In this episode, we're going to discuss whether you should use AI to negotiate your next clinical trial agreement. We cover using AI for budget negotiations, issues for AI contracts, who owns AI contracts, the limitations of AI in negotiations, the dependence on AI, practical applications of AI, and the normal challenge in negotiations. Our guests are Elizabeth, Budget Administrator at University of Cincinnati, and Istvan Director at Huron Consulting. Let's get into it.
One of my favorite things that I read about, this is going back a few years, but apparently they used two AIs and they got them to negotiate with each other. I don't know what the agreement was or anything like that. They didn't specify. But apparently the AI came up with its own language to negotiate with each other.
So to answer your first question, no. AI is never going to replace humans as part of the contract negotiation process. It's going to be a human assist. The other thing, I completely agree with you that from an understanding perspective, it's not going to work with AIs negotiating against each other because you use the concept of somebody shepherding that agreement through the process and letting different stakeholders know the things that they need to know at the points in time that they need to know it. Now, I look at one of my goals. My goal for my career is to make my job as obsolete as possible. That's my long range goal. And so my team has been piloting a lot of the artificial intelligence solutions in the contracting space that have emerged. And there's a lot of nuance to the functionality that they can offer. Ideally, we want to get to a place where the AI can produce a first pass initial red line when you're reacting to third-party paper, and then the human comes in on the back end and does a quality assurance review of what the AI did. There's other programs that what it'll say is, what we can do is, if this flag exists in the contract, there will automatically notify marketing, or will automatically notify business development, or will automatically notify legal, right? Pulling out those key components of the agreement and you see creating a flag for different stakeholders. There's other AI that will go through the contract and compare it against your playbook and say, all right, this is a violation of your playbook. This is what your playbook says. These concepts that are in your playbook are missing from this contract. Somewhat helpful, but for those of us who are sophisticated in contract negotiation, that's not that helpful. The most recent program that my team is going to pilot is the best one I've seen so far, and I'll explain why. I'm not going to plug them because I don't work for them. But and we're still in the middle of the pilot, so I haven't proven that this thing works. But a couple things they've done that's really smart. One, lawyers, contract negotiators, we're used to working in Word. Okay, what a lot of these AI programs do is you have to do it through their system, and they don't have Word functionality. They may have like the online version of Word, so you're losing a lot of that functionality. What this group has done is created a Word plugin, so you don't actually need to do anything in their system. You just click a button when you're in Word and it turns on the AI review. A couple other smart things that they've done is in one review pane on the side, you'll see areas in the contract that don't align with your guidelines, what your guidelines preferred position is, the logic behind that preferred position, and then you could have an AI redline the terms of the contract to that preferred position. Additionally, what it'll do is it'll pull in precedent where you've dealt with this issue before. So you could also decide to leverage that precedent, right?
Well, fair enough. So let me point out the myriad of issues with what Ish has pointed out. So Ish, I have issues. So I divide problems into three different layers. I first go the AI technology itself problems, the pharma level problems, and then the application level problems. We'll talk about just the first two, which is the AI level, the technology level problems, and the pharma level problems. Specifically in the context of the technology level problems, the AI itself has been trained. Most AIs at this moment, just the amount of volume you need to train them, they're training on information that is copyrighted. So right now they've been going after, the New York Times has been suing ChatGPT saying, hey, you guys use our technology, our proprietary information to train your AI. You don't have the right to do that. We're going to sue you. And tech companies are pharma companies. And they're going to go after sponsors, and sponsors may end up going after everyone else as well. So that's the first thing. Ownership. Who owns the actual contracts that you put into the system to train the AI?
It depends.
Okay.
So there are certain AI companies that will mandate that as part of using their system, they get to use your data to further train their own AI. So not your specific instance of the AI, but their overall AI module. In that scenario, ownership gets really murky, because even if you own the contract, they have rights to all of the data.
Well, here's the thing.
Now, there are companies, there are AIs, though, that claim, and the contract, I say claim, and their contract terms will back up the claim. I just don't necessarily believe that they create a separate instance of their program where they don't retain any of your data or use it to train their AI. Now, to me, if I'm an AI company, I go with the first option where I force you to let me use your data, because then my AI is going to train faster than the entity that isn't doing it.
Here's your problem with that. At some point, they have to start from somewhere. And the AI companies didn't exist like 2 years ago. So they had to train initially off of someone else's data, assuming they own the copyright on the actual contracts that were created. So it has initial sort of first sin, if you will, around contracts. So I think it's possible, and the language there may be murky, but there is a claim around copyright issues. So that's one. The second one is the input we said is already tarnished. Who owns the output? Because the USPTO and the Copyright Office have come out and said that AI-generated content may not be copyrighted and or owned in the same way. And I can tell you that sponsors and sites, etc., would expect that their contracts should be owned in some specific way. So that's going to raise its own issues. The third issue that you're going to say is, by definition, when you're training these AIs, you have the black box problem, which is you don't know how the AI is making decisions. How is it deciding that something rises to the level of changing it, and therefore deciding something does not rise to the level of changing it? So we don't know how that system works. No one does, including the people who wrote the AI systems. That raises another question. Then with it comes the question of bias. For example, will it negotiate a hemophiliac study differently than, for, say, a sickle cell study, and the downstream ramifications of it?
My response to a lot of this, Darshan, would be, you're pointing out to me the reasons why AI is never going to supplement the human review.
No, I'm pointing out the problems with AI. I'm not suggesting that it will not replace human review. I'm saying that it has problems, and I feel like people aren't acknowledging them.
Well, I would say that you're never going to get to a point where the AI can do the contract without a human doing a quality assurance review on top of the AI's review. I don't believe that we're ever going to get to a point where that secondary human quality assurance review will not be required.
Takes me to the next point. Thank you for raising it. I used to work as a pharmacist for a long time, for like 20-something years. And one of the things that's most common is that hospitals went, you know what? We don't want the liability, so we're going to tell pharmacists, and when you get an order from a doctor, acknowledge, agree every single time there's a drug interaction. They got so common, so routine, that you just kept clicking through them. Because you're like, I know it's going to throw up a warning. Every Coumadin, every warfarin interaction, there are like 17 of them. And you just click through them. You're never going to read all 17 interactions because you know warfarin's going to throw up that warning every single time. My point is, as AI becomes better, people will start ignoring the comments being made, and you'll inevitably see people going, yeah, if AI picked it up, it's good enough for me, and I'm just going to keep moving through. And that dependence on the AI is going to be our downfall. So you're right. It's going to be like someone going, oh, I'm sitting in a car reading a magazine because I know that the car will continue to drive in a way that's safe. But
And then next thing you know, you're in the lake. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. That's actually something when you were talking about it would reduce training time because it would be easier to train people. How much of that they can become dependent on the AI? And then if the AI system wasn't working that day, are they going to be able to? They're kind of going to have a brain fart. They're going to be like, oh, because I don't think people realize how dependent they will probably get on it.
Exactly.
Because they're so used to it being into their workflow. And then when it's gone, you're like, your brain just wasn't working that way. It was like short circuit.
What I'll tell you I'm already doing, though, is I'm actually using AI to generate terms for me. Because sometimes I want specific terms to be included in a contract that I might have to go buy a Law Insider, for example, has clauses that you can use. But they're not all the clauses you need. Point being, AI is already helping us develop language for that. Because it can, if you tell it what you're trying to achieve, it can develop a first draft for you to work from. Does it keep negotiating to a certain point until you basically come to the thing everyone's been avoiding but needs to do, which is template agreements, the way a Realtor.com has?
What's interesting that you say that is when I look at my primary job when I'm negotiating these contracts is normal has been defined for a long time. Normal has been defined. And so people then decide, I'm going to use the word, get creative. And so they decide to go outside of normal, and then you try to put them back into the box of normal, and then they want to get creative again, and they start to go, and so that's what I find so interesting is we're just going through that exercise over and over again. Deviate from the box, how much can we put you back in the box? Deviate from the box, how much can we put you back into the box?
Right. I think to your point, though, normal has been defined for certain audiences in certain places, and each person's definition of normal is different. So small academic sites, they have a normal, versus large academic institutions, they have a normal. Small academic site in Arkansas, in rural Arkansas, is different from small academic site in New York City. So yes, there's a normal, but what does normal mean? No one really knows. It's sort of like saying there's a standard of care. Well, standard of care to whom? And that's always up for negotiation. So whatever I decide that moment, that's normal. So what would be the parting question, Lizzie, you would ask the audience as a result of this talk?
I think the parting question is just, the simple question of, do you think AI is going to replace all these people some people believe that AI is going to be taking all these people's jobs. So in this realm,
in Magi 10 years from now, are there only half as many attendees because the other half were replaced by artificial intelligence?
They're going to be all robots.
In 10 years, will Magi be double the size because there'll be more contracts being negotiated, and because you can just do more of them, and there'll be 15 more AI vendors. So we'll find out. Called, click, or email